So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for TAG's Voices of Liberation podcast. So, as usual, I will start out with an overview of what TAG is and some of the programs we offer. So, TAG stands for Take Action Advocacy Group, and we have been in existence for 10 years. It's actually our 10-year anniversary this year. Our old name was Take Action Mon Valley, which we still have for our chapter. But our new name is Take Action Advocacy Group. We rebranded about 3 years ago now. So this name TAG comes from TAAG. So TAG is a Black liberation organization that focuses on helping Black people and other marginalized groups in the small communities. And we focus on the small communities because that's literally where we all grew up. We grew up in Mon Valley, which is in Allegheny County, close to the city of Pittsburgh, but we're outside of the city of Pittsburgh. There are a total of over 100 different municipalities in Allegheny County, and a majority of those kind of get left out around that bigger city of Pittsburgh. So the small areas where your racism and your isms live and take place, a lot of nepotism as well. We That's where we center our work in these small communities. So how we take action is we have training, community consulting, storytelling, which is what you're watching now. One of those is the podcast. We also do political education. We also do blogs, which is another piece of our storytelling where we talk about the campaigns that we're working on. We have our chapter where we do our community organizing, and that's called Take Action Mon Valley. You can always sign up on our website to join or volunteer. We have our short term complaint program, which we affectionately call Social Work Abolition. We're an abolitionist organization. And within that program, we really focus on helping people navigate through the system. We always like to say the police have the system, and the people have organizations like ours to kind of help walk them through the process. It's short term presently now due to capacity, so we can help people out with connecting with legal resources, mental health resources, legal assistance, or just giving any advice they may have. And then we also advocate for Black liberation and various social justice causes. This year for 2024, we're really focused on environmental justice. We're really focused on medical advocacy, political education, and police violence. We have a present ongoing lawsuit against the city of McKeesport as well as Allegheny County for the way they reacted when Kobe Francis shot an officer. The officer did survive here in McKeesport, in the way that they seized our community for a week. So we did sue them along with the ACLU. So that is something that is still ongoing. The last thing we're really pushing is our wellness and healing, which we have wellness sessions that you can sign up for our website presently. So that's a little bit about TAG and a little about how we take action. So we started doing a podcast. I feel like it's been about a year now. We do it once a month on the second Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And this topic for this podcast is Black August. So to have this conversation, I'm going to welcome on Frames, and Frames is with the Black Socialist Formation. So welcome, Frames.
Please, thank you, Juan. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast today. Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So you want
Yeah.
to tell little people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Frames, he, him pronouns. I'm in the Black Socialist Formation along with Juan, a great comrade. Um, we met actually in what is now a project of the Black Socialist Formation, but as the Pittsburgh Black Socialist Study Group, um, Black Socialist, we just call it. And yeah, we've been in that for over a year and a half, I want to say now. Studying, meeting monthly as well. Usually gathered around a reading or some type of media that involves working towards finding the best synthesis of socialisms, black nationalisms, black feminisms, and pan Africanisms in our quest to kind of find a politic that works for us collectively when we think about black liberation.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Frames. And I feel like you're a perfect person to have for this conversation because we spent so much time, doing political education and being a principal struggle, with each other over the last year with the study group, and I feel like that really speaks to, what Black August is. So that would be kind of like my first question is, what does Black August mean to you?
Ah, okay. So I'd say for me, Black August means it's an opportunity to practice discipline. I think first and foremost is the way I would describe it. It's an opportunity to practice discipline, to teach myself and remind myself kind of who I am, who I come from, what I am, what I come from, and specifically in the context of struggle, of resistance. Black folks across the world, all around the globe have been, of course, as we know, we talk about often dealing with oppression for centuries. Um, and I think it's really important in our framing to also understand that Black folks have been resisting for centuries. Africans have been resisting for centuries against that oppression. And so Black August is an opportunity for me to engage in a practice of disciplining myself um, for that struggle that's ongoing because, we're all implicated in that struggle. We all have stakes in that struggle. And so our options are either to be involved in it actively, or let whatever happens happen to us passively. Um, I think all of us as Black people, as Africans across the globe, we each have a role that we can play. We each have some something to contribute to this struggle for our collective liberation. And Black August is a great month, one out of the year to, just buckle down and practice disciplining myself in preparation for and in continuation of that struggle, of that, that life resistance.
Absolutely. So everything you just said, I agree with. Just to add on to it, to me, I kind of see it as a nudge or a whisper from the ancestors, to really get into study, to really get into action, to really get into resistance. That's principle, like principle alignment. So it's like a reminder, nudge, whisper from the ancestors to really get involved in our collective liberation. So that's kind of how I see Black August. Like, oh, okay, yeah, we need to get with studying. We need to make sure that we are, in doing some collective activities that we're collectively, resisting. So it really means unity to me, and that, really a reminder of what we should be doing, which is studying and being in that collective struggle with one another. And I
Yeah.
know, what is the history of Black August, I guess, in your specific opinion?
So, of what I know of the history of Black August, it is a month that we spend once those folks who are involved in the Black Liberation Movement spend every August to commemorate, to honor all of those who have fallen in the fight for Black liberation, and also to honor, uplift, and to focus on all those who have been imprisoned in
Hmm.
this fight, who are political prisoners, prisoners of war in the fight for Black liberation. That includes folks who have been imprisoned because of their Black liberation politics. That includes folks who went to prison and became politicized behind bars.
Yes.
Um, and I think when we talk about the history of Black August, um, one of the important tenets that we kind of touched on already of Black August is this idea of study. An
Yeah.
important part of Black August, I think, history is making sure that we all who are interested in it and engaged in it, right, and participating in the observation of Black August, the study of the history. So a lot of what I know about the history of Black August comes directly from um, a pretty useful resource offered by the Malcolm X grassroots movement, um, and that's specifically from Mama Ayana Mashama, um, who kind of offers us the story of a little bit of the story of like George Jackson and the founding of Black August, or the beginning of Black August, because Black August was first started in honor of George Jackson, who was assassinated during his time as a prisoner, political prisoner, in the
Hmm.
70s.
Yes, yes. So Black August was first celebrated in 1970s. There was a prison outbreak in California with George Jackson and his comrades. He was assassinated at that time. So then that's when we started to celebrate Black August, because all that happened specifically in August. So we started to call that Black August. So it really started with George Jackson and his comrades in the 70s, and continued on to really be, like Frame said, a time where we celebrate freedom fighters living and deceased. So a time where we connect with our ancestors, remember them, but as well, we recognize the people living, fighting in the movement as well. And I so appreciate you breaking down what a political prisoner is, and including that you can be radicalized when you get to jail. So I appreciate that explanation of what a political prisoner is. So with Black August, the month of August is so important to Black people, in the ways that we shown resistance in the past. You have the Haitian Revolution that was in August. You have the I'm gonna start over, but y'all can edit that out. So I'm gonna start over. Um, so with Black August, we are talking about the month of August and how important that is to Black people. So there were so many events that happened in August. You had the Haitian Revolution, the Watts Rebellion. You had Ferguson, and then more recently, last year, which was a few days ago, you have the Montgomery Brawl, or Fuck Around to Find Out Day, however you frame it. So there's a lot of important connections to the month of August. August is a month of rebellion for
Yeah,
Black people, and I bet we could even find a lot more if we kind of look back into August and what that means to Black people.
yeah. I would say even just to name, I really appreciate that you named the Haitian Revolution. I think that's really important. You mentioned the Watts Rebellion. We can talk about Nat Turner's rebellion that also happened in August. Um, and another thing that it's something I kind of knew about, but I didn't really realize that happened in August as well. Um, but it was in August when in Burkina Faso, there was a coup d'etat that took over what was then called Upper Volta, I believe, during it. Um, that there was a coup d'etat that brought Thomas Sankara into power, and created what we know as Burkina Faso today. Um,
Mm,
and I mentioned that third one specifically just to speak to how global this fight for Black
yeah.
liberation is, and even we look at this, August, maybe we specify into August, and you can see things happening here in this land here that we call the states right now, um, in the Caribbean, right in Haiti, on the continent of Africa, in Burkina Faso. We see that all these things happen in different years, right, but in the same month of August, and they're all great, great, fantastic examples of what it looks like when folks really in a disciplined, principled, like you said, the word principled, in a principled way, take on the task of fighting actively for Black liberation.
Yes, yes. And I appreciate you mentioning the international, like it can be global, because we have a tendency, and I would say in the states here in America, to kind of get sucked into what we're specifically going through without kind of seeing some of the intersections of our people, everywhere. We have things going on in Congo, things going on in Haiti, going on in Sudan. We have things going on everywhere, and extreme solidarity we showed the people of Palestine. So there's things going around, going on everywhere. So Black August is global. It's everywhere. We should all be celebrating that resistance of getting into what Black August is. So I so appreciate you mentioning the global piece. And how are you celebrating Black August, and how can others celebrate as well?
Okay, yeah. So I appreciate you as well, and kind of how we're framing this together because I think it really is important. I appreciate you bringing up some of the more contemporary struggles we're dealing with. By the way, too, I think that's really
Yeah.
important. Um, it's valuable that you do that constantly wherever we are, because there is also a tendency sometimes to kind of compartmentalize and maybe like romanticize certain periods in our history of Black liberation, as if it isn't one ongoing continuous struggle and one ongoing continuous fight. Um, and it's like we still have much work to do, and everything that's come before us, we have to learn from. We have to gain wisdom from. We have our ancestors that came before us to guide us forward, and we also will be ancestors to those to come. And we have we have work to do. We got things to do. Um, Going forward if we're fighting for liberation, because it's also
Hmm.
important. Right now, we're not, and acknowledge like right now, you're not rated people, Africans globally. So I really appreciate you making mention of things that folks are dealing with right now.
Absolutely, and it is so connected, to our past, and it goes beyond what I hear a lot of people say when they say, "Well, vote because you know your ancestors." That it goes so beyond that. Ancestors died so we can live, so we can exist, so we can have joy, so we can have liberation. We could fight for liberation. They fought for all of that. Voting is a very small piece of that. It is one way to help. It is not the only way to help. So I wish people would, reframe that when they kind of put that out there, because once people really get connected with their ancestors, it's very powerful, and we have that deep traumatic history. There's something there when you really sit down, and connect with your people. So I appreciate you, kind of bringing that up as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, to your question about how I celebrate Black August and how other folks celebrate Black August. Me, I right now I'm engaged in the fast, the Black August fast. There are four general principles folks observe as well in relation to Black August: is to study, to train, to fast, and to fight. Um, so I'll kind of talk about that first before I talk about what I'm doing specifically and kind of where I'm at um, in my practice of discipline. So these four tenets of Black August: observation, to study, studying towards Black liberation, and again internationally, globally, because everything is important. Everything we got going on here and everything in our
Right.
history here is extremely important, and everything globally is important. And like you said, it's connected. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so studying around Black liberation, um, training themselves in body, in mind, spirit as well. Especially, I think, with the focus on physical training to the best of your ability, within your ability, whatever you can do. Um, Training ourselves to remain prepared to do what we need to do in this fight as well. Fasting is recommended that folks fast sun up to sundown. I believe historically too, it was modeled directly after the Ramadan fast by the folks who began the practice of Black August when initially it began. Um, if that's a fast that folks are able to do, abstaining from food and water from sun up to sundown. But also, there's ways to modify that as well. It's not about us policing each other and saying, you didn't really do the fast, you ain't, or whatever, you're not really observe. It is a practice of building discipline. It's just that it's a practice, and we need to come together to do these things, to practice together, to learn together, to teach each other, and to help keep each other focused, keep each other motivated. Um, to discipline ourselves, and to build discipline. So you can do that fast. Me personally, I don't abstain from water, but I have been doing the food fast from sun up to sundown. Uh, and the last tenet I should speak about before I go into more about what I'm doing is to fight.
Mhm.
And so fighting, one of the big fights is fighting to free our political prisoners. Um, right? Because while we honor the ones, our comrades who have fallen already, the ones who came and passed on, either were killed or died behind bars, or maybe were freed and died shortly after, or, however, we can honor the folks that have moved on. But it's really important as well to fight for the folks who are still here, which you mentioned earlier as well. Yeah, so that's a big part of Black August is fighting freedom of our prisoners, as well as joining with folks, getting together, joining an organization or a collective, or getting together with folks and figuring out what we can do to work towards Black liberation. And so those are the four tenets: study, train, fast, and fight. And so, like I said, fast. So far, so good. Last year was actually my first year fasting. Um, I had known about Black August for a couple years, but
Hmm.
last year was the first year I felt ready to take on the fast, and it was difficult, but it was extremely rewarding, which motivated me so much to do it again this year. And I don't see it being any different of an experience for me, if not better. I think it'll be the same. Uh, Studying, reading, also, all kinds of resources that can help. We don't need to learn by reading. I think that's also a very Western concept.
Yeah.
The idea that we only learn through reading, because, or not the idea that we only learn through reading, but lifting up reading and writing as the number one, the primary, the most
Hmm.
valuable, most uh, valid form of knowledge sharing. We can talk to each other, and we can teach each other and learn from each other. You can watch videos and listen to music, and what I mean, do things that will bolster knowledge, that will support what we know, remind us of the things we may have forgotten.
Hmm.
But just learning more about this struggle for Black liberation, learning more about Black resistance. And because we focus on freeing our political prisoners, it's a good month also to just focus on studying political prisoners specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Training wise, what I'm doing is just doing some workouts here and there. I don't have a specific regimen, but I try to make sure I make time every day to train my body, trying to get back into a little bit of meditation as well. Um, and in terms of the fighting aspect, I think that's the one place that I feel like I see myself wanting to grow a lot, because I think so far up to now in my life, I haven't done so much work involved with making connection with our comrades behind bars. And that's something I want to grow in. That's an area I want to grow in a lot. Um, because of the reasons that, I was just stating earlier. But just as well, on you and I are working uh, very tirelessly, in BSF and what we're doing. uh, you in addition to a whole bunch of other things as well. So, um, yeah, those are the things I'm doing for Black August this year.
So we have train, study, fast, fight.
Yep.
So I'm gonna say that again for y'all folks. Train, study, fast, fight. So those are the pillars of Black August. Train, study, fast, fight. And when you talk about training, I want to mention too that that involves physical training, but also mental training. Because as one of our elders, Mr. Carver, would always say, is we are in a fight for the hearts and minds of our people.
Mhm.
So we have to train up to be able to combat that. So if you could take a community organizer training, if you could watch a lot of people have those trainings on YouTube for free. Some of them are out there. We do some of those trainings. A lot of people are doing them. Malcolm X Grassroots is doing some things as well. We'll make sure we put that in the chat, and we put that out there so you all can know they have a handbook out. They have things they're doing weekly sessions. So please sign up. Malcolm X Grassroots group. You can look at their website. You can sign up. We do a lot of our things with Movement for Black Lives, and they're also doing some things with Malcolm X Grassroots group. So you can train physically. You all can also train mentally. I'm definitely studying and reading. Me personally, we're doing some things with the Black Socialist Formation. I'm doing a lot of honoring of my ancestors. I do that weekly. I have a practice where I like sage. I honor our ancestors. I do a lot of reading and studying as well as writing, which is really my way to kind of celebrate Black August. I also do some writings to political prisoners as well, and Tag does some work helping people in jail as well. We always fighting. That's something that but we're always kind of doing. So, when did you first hear about Black August frames? Like, were you young? When did you first even hear about it?
That's a great question. I know that I wasn't young for sure. Um, it had to be sometime while I was in college, so between the ages of like 18 to 22, I would say. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
was maybe I was 19, maybe I was 20 when I first heard of Black August. Um, and when I heard about it and looked into it, it wasn't immediately that year that I started really paying attention and trying to do the study of the history of Black August. That took some time, maybe, right? So if I heard about it when I was 19 or 20, and I really started paying attention and really trying to figure out what is this Black August thing when I was like 21, right? And saying, okay, I'm committed. I want to commit myself to something,
Mm.
in observation of Black August. And so, like I mentioned earlier, last year was my first year doing the fast, but it wasn't like I flipped the switch necessarily. I kind of worked my way up, um, to observe it, and that's just how it went for me personally. Was I worked myself up to the way I observed Black August this year, because even the small things really matter and they make a difference, and that got me to where I am now. Because when I was 21, 22, I think me and a couple friends said, "Hey, for this Black August, let's try and read this book together. Let's take a look at this book today. Um, let's try to read through All About Love by Bell Hooks, or let's try to read through A Soldier Story, uh, which is a book I really love."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I heard about it. Um, I'd say when I was like 20.
Mm. So I was in my early 30s. I'm 44 now. So, and I've been doing movement work since I was 11 years old. So it just kind of brings back the importance of being intentional or really learning about your history because they don't teach us about Black August in school. They don't teach us about Black August any damn where. This was I was around movement elders when they told me about it. I was in my 30s. I had no idea. I didn't hear about the Haitian Revolution until I was, in my 30s. So it was definitely a progress for me. I had been doing movement work for so long, and I kind of felt like I was at a standstill. I was having a lot of principled alignment disagreements with some of my comrades. And I was like, what is happening? What is going on? So the ancestors were like, you have to read, you have to study.
Mm,
So I took it upon myself to start reading and studying. And I said, okay, this is what Black August is. And this is this connection that I've kind of always had with the ancestors, but couldn't really name, what it was. So I appreciate you saying that you kind of had to work your way up there, because I don't want, Black people to think that this isn't attainable. And we're not saying that you have to study every day, you have to fast. No, you have to do whatever you're comfortable with doing. But the overall intention is to really be intentional about learning about your people because they're not teaching us these things. They're not going to tell us. They don't tell you this in college. Depending on what college you go to, what you're studying, they don't tell you this in any K to 12 education. We're not even talking about this, amongst each other a lot, unless you're kind of in a movement. So you do have to be intentional about doing it and making sure that yeah, that you study your people and get to know your people. But I wanted to ask you that, like, when did you first hear about this, and when did this, become a thing for you? But I was, like I said, I was in my 30s, and I'm doing this since I was 11. But it was never anything that was brought up. It was like the first thing I was taught was to fight,
mm,
you know. But in order to stay in the movement, you have to do more than just fight. You have to train. You have to read. You have to study. You have to be in a collective with people learning.
yeah.
It has been so beneficial to me. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone. Start where you're at. But just Google things, read things, get some books. What are some books that you would recommend? I feel like you kind of named a few. I know some books by Sakura are really good. It's a biography. George Jackson himself wrote some books before he was assassinated. And our study group. Now I don't want to mispronounce this. I may mispronounce it. Frames, A Soldier Story, Revolutionary Writings. That is by, I don't want to say it wrong.
Waste of Balagoon. Yep.
Yes, yes. So that's what our study group is kind of reading now. So what are some other books you would recommend?
So first of all, I gotta talk about the ones you named because they're all great books. I appreciate you lifting those up. Like you mentioned, our study group this month, actually in a few days, is gonna be talking about some excerpts from that book, A Soldier Story, um, revolutionary writings by a New African anarchist, Kwesi Balagoon, and his writings have been like I think this year for me have been some of the most inspiring in the context of Black August. Um, because something important that I gained from reading Kwesi Balagoon has just been how important, how necessary it is for us to be honestly, seriously, intentionally, in a principled way committed to this struggle,
Yeah.
committed to this fight for Black people. Um, has highlighted for me how important it is for us to reframe the way we think, um, and reconsider all the things we've been taught as truth, all the things we've been taught to know, and also the way that we understand, the way that we learn, the way that we understand who we are and how we work and how we come together and how we commune, how we join and fight in community. Because one thing about Kwesi was, you know, he was a proud New African, um, part of a very, uh, outspoken Black
Mm-hmm.
nationalism movement, proud member of the Black Liberation Army. He was in the Panthers, you know, but Kwesi wasn't just gonna take what people told him and run with it without ever questioning it. And that's where some of his anarchist politics comes out because he was the kind of person to say, hey, I have some issues with the way this organization is run. And while that contradiction exists, right, while I'm fighting within this organization, but with some time to really think and reflect on this, there are things about the way it operates that I don't really rock with, that don't really work, and I don't think they're gonna uh, work in the long run, in the long term necessarily for us. That didn't diminish his will to fight, and that didn't. His answer to that wasn't, "Well, I'm not gonna work with my people anymore." His answer to that was, "My people are smart enough to figure out what's gonna work for us in the end. But right now, we're all fighting a common enemy. Right now, we are, a colonized people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna work with my folks, and support my folks who are fighting actively for our liberation and actually doing something and not just talking around it. Um, so I see that's my little thing on
Mm-hmm.
some of what that book has meant for me and the study of Kwesi Balagoon in general has done for me this year. You mentioned the Asada's biography is also that was probably the book I was reading when I first decided I'm gonna make a real serious effort to observe Black August. Now that you mention it too, because I just remember reading that book and loving it. And something that both those books have in common is that they're just written from a very kind of easy to flow thing. The autobiography, you kind of flow right through the reading because it's almost conversational. It's almost like the telling of a story, the way Assad is telling a story. And Kwesi, the book of Kwesi Balgoon's things, it's a collection of his writings, but all his writings. Um, so that's that on those two books. Another thing I might recommend, um, just again to give us a global view, and I think it's the last thing I'll mention is just this book, Colonizing the Mind by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Um, he is a he's a Kenyan, I believe, Kikuyu writer. Um, he uh, he wrote this book, Decolonizing the Mind, and also has done a lot of his work in writing, thinking around just what the title of that book uh, suggests: decolonizing the mind and decolonizing the way we think. Um, because it's important that, like you said, to quote Mr. Redwood, we're fighting for the minds and the hearts of people.
Yeah.
And our minds are not something to be taken for granted. Uh, the language that we use to speak in is a colonized language that we're speaking in right now. And
Mm-hmm.
untouched by the colonizer, unaffected by the colonizer, it's very likely that we wouldn't be speaking this language of English right now to speak with each other. We wouldn't the way we're taught art, the way we're taught life, uh, our goals in life, what we should ultimately um, strive to be in this world. A lot of that, it's all touched by colonialism. It's all touched by that. It's really important to recognize that. Again, not in a hopeless way, not to say what's the point of fighting, but to recognize that like this is a fight that is happening across many dimensions of our lives and our living. Um, and it's another reason why this is not something that folks can do alone. Fawn, you have mentioned so many times really that like this is about coming together and talking about our
Yep.
collective liberation. And yeah, that struggle to build this discipline during Black August is a collective struggle. And so
Yes.
um, whenever we can observe Black August, it's even better when you're observing it with people, um,
Mm-hmm.
in group doing it if you can. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just decolonizing the mind by Ngugi wa Thiong'o is my last recommendation. That
And that is so important because you can't unlearn until you understand.
mm,
So you have to get to the point where you're reading and you're understanding what you're trying to unlearn. I think we
mm,
all know. We always say the system is designed for us. I think we all understand that we can internalize white supremacy and we should unlearn it. But in order to do that, you have to understand what the hell you're trying to unlearn. You literally only get that from studying and reading and from being in that collective principle struggle with your people. So I so appreciate you mentioning that book and the importance of us kind of decolonizing our minds in the ways that it shows up for us in the way we do it to one another. Because there's a lot of internalized racism going on. But in order to really understand where that comes from, you have to be able to read, you have to be able to study. And I know that we have mentioned a few times that Frames and myself are part of a group called the Black Socialist Formation. So we'll put in the chat, we'll put the link out as well for how you can join that. So you can join that by coming through our study group. So there is a link on the Pittsburgh Black Workers Center website to sign up and join the study group. We would love to have you come out. We are now kind of focused in southwestern PA area, so that's where we do a lot of our meetings. Most of them are in person. Sometimes there's a virtual option, but the majority are in the Pittsburgh area. So if you're in that area, please sign up. We would love to have you. Love to have you all join us. Recognizing Black August, studying and reading is not for a certain group of Black people. It's for all of us. It's not just for academia. It is not just for your movement people. It is for all of us. We all should be intentional about celebrating Black August, just as we are about Juneteenth, just as we are about any other holidays that center who we are as a people. So, thank you so much, Frames, for coming on and talking about Black August with us. So for the last part of the podcast, that's where I talk mess or I talk shit, however you want to call it. So you can stay on, or it's totally up to you. Totally up to you.
I'll stand on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's where I
Thank you.
get into my stuff.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on, but there are some tag events that I just want to tell you all about. So as I mentioned earlier, we are having our anniversary event this year. So that is going to be in September. Our flyers and information will be coming out shortly. We will be needing sponsors for those particular events. So for those particular events, we're putting out sponsorships. So please check that out when we put that information out. Our U chapter is recruiting now. They're going to be having a virtual event for people who want to join our U chapter. Please reach out if you're interested in joining our U chapter. We have some ongoing advocacy campaigns that we're raising a lot of noise about, but we would love to have more people join on and share those, especially folks with bigger platforms. It's always hard doing the work that Tag does because we do that for the smaller communities where we're grassroots community organizers. So we're hood famous, as I like to as I like to call it. So a lot of times we don't have those bigger platforms. We work with the families who don't have videos. So it's hard for people to actually believe us without a video, even us. So some of those families are Quenisha Ball. She was killed in Cap County in Atlanta area, just crossing the street. Um, and there's a lot of black women and girls who are killed, a lot of black people and people in general in Atlanta from pedestrian issues. It's about eighth in the country in Georgia. So that family has been ringing the alarm, trying to make sure that the gentleman who hit her is arrested. There was an internal affairs investigation that came out, so we're still pushing for an arrest because they did not make an arrest, they even issue a ticket. They kind of just let them go, which is a common thing in in the Atlanta area. So um, please share that story. That's on our blog as well. Eduardo Hoover was killed in Washington County. He was driving. There was a chase, and they shot him. Now there is body cam footage for that. There is body cam footage for Misha as well, but it's more along after the facts. All these things are on our website. So that's Eduardo Hoover. He was killed in Washington County. The Washington County DA is horrible in regards to the treatment of black and brown people. He uses the death penalty more than a lot of other DAs, and this is a little small Washington County. So please look that case up as well. That's a blog on our website. Ramir Tally is something that we've been working on for a while now, and this is coming to my mind because of what happened. I heard today or a few days ago around Breonna Taylor's the officers finally being arrested or charged. And there's so many families still waiting for that kind of justice that deserve that kind of attention. So you hear the names I'm calling, share their stories, get the word out about those events. So that's what's going on for TAG. I just wanted to go over that specifically what we had going on this month. We'll be doing some Black August things as well, and we're always doing our environmental justice work. And you can sign up for those on our website. So that's what's happening for TAG. So I'll kind of end out talking about some current events. I know Frames is going to join me for that, but we're going to be talking about presidential election as well as um, our dear sister Sandra Massey, who was murdered by police. So with Sandra Massey, I don't know if you watched the video, Frames. I did not watch the video. Um, I stopped watching those videos. I think it had to be 3 years ago now. After I watched one and I recognized that I was having a trauma reaction, like I kind of shut down and went somewhere for a minute, and I said I cannot continue to watch it on top of doing the work. So I didn't watch it. I totally understand why a lawyer, the family wanted it out there, but I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
No,
No.
I didn't watch it. I wasn't looking for it for the same reason. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't watch it, and every time we see our people getting slain like this on camera, and this reaction comes, it really pisses me off because people like me and you, Frames, have been screaming police violence for years, and no action happens until one of us are dead. And death is permanent. So I'm tired of people needing to see black bodies to do anything, needing to see black bodies to cure, needing to see black bodies to take any kind of action. Like how many people have to be killed? How many of us have to die at the hands of police? Um, before something is actually done about it. So, and you can't reform that. You can't train that away. You have to abolish policing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that too. It's not something that you form away. It's not about a couple bad apples. It's not about It's
Hmm.
really the police are the military arm of this imperialist machine. And one way we can look at it too is we have the police, we have the military, we have this empire using those these militant violent
Yeah.
forces both to colonize, African people here within these so-called United States and elsewhere all around the world. And what you're talking about right now is just an example of one of so many countless examples of the way policing in this country actually works and actually operates, and how it's been operating throughout its entire history. Um, and these are not things we can reform away because they're essential to how this country works. And this whole country was founded upon that kind of violence.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's inextricably intertwined with the system of capitalism, this system of police violence. It's inextricably intertwined with the system of patriarchy. It's inextricably intertwined with anti-blackness in general and how it functions globally. Again, like I said, how it's linked to the military, but also linked to the way um, capitalism, imperialism is the driving force for continuing the exploitation of African land,
Hmm.
indigenous land in general, um, around the globe, and African and indigenous peoples, their labor and their lives. So like you said, uh, folks have been screaming around police violence for generations already, um, and it's not something that we hope will get better one day. It's something that has to end with police, and police have to end. Um, Policing has to end, and a lot of the evils and all of the evils of what this empire represents, it all needs to end. It all needs to be ended. Rather, I think that's the kind of Black liberation that a lot of
Hmm.
folks fighting toward when we talk about Black August. It's not a reformist kind of fight for liberation. It's a fight against an oppressor. Um, I think that's really important too. I heard someone say it, and I wish I could remember who mentioned it. Um, but someone had said, and I had either heard it or read it somewhere, that one of the benefits of studying political prisoners too is understanding that people are imprisoned for a reason, right? And the
Yeah.
things they speak about, the ideas they hold, and their ability to share those ideas, to teach
Hmm.
the masses, to teach our people, to teach us um, how things really work here and what we're really fighting against. People who have that ability um, are seen as a threat by this empire. And so it makes all the more sense why this empire would want to hold them as prisoners and to separate them from their people, separate them from the masses, um, hold them away, and to abuse them, to try to find ways to force them to
Hmm.
what they're saying, to stop the fight. And when they see that someone is not willing to stop that fight, they lock them up and try their hardest to kill them. Um, so I
Yeah.
think I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but
No, it's everything you said was so true in regards, to the state sanctioned violence that police have been doing since the beginning of policing. So it baffles me sometimes how people feel like, oh, these reform methods or tactics are actually going to work. They're not going to work. You literally have to, abolish policing. Along those lines of abolition and reform and policies, the presidential election is upon us. And, you know, Tag really doesn't get into who, telling people who to vote for. But one thing, and I write a little bit about this in my upcoming Courier piece, regardless of who is running or who is in the White House, our role doesn't change. We still have to organize. We still have to fight. We still have to resist. It's our duty to resist. The policies that are going on, none of them are really in our favor specifically. So it doesn't matter who's running. Some of the things that I've seen with people endorsing candidates or people throwing the support, behind people without having any platform, without having any policies, or are there any policies that are going to get us for toward abolition. We don't know some of those things. So I just want to caution people to make sure that you still have to hold people accountable. You still need to ask questions. You still need to make sure that there's alignment with what you believe in. And two things can be true at the same time. You can celebrate this moment if that's what you choose to do. You can organize. You can still hold people accountable. And you should be doing all those things. So it really doesn't change anything. Our role doesn't change here. We need to be organizing, regardless of whoever you're supporting. You have to organize. You have to make sure that this person agrees with the positions. That there's some alignment there. So, and I'll caution the organizers too on these campaigns to, you know, kind of step out of that pet rally phase and get into some hardcore organizing in regards to, what are some of the policies these candidates believe in? What policies can we propose? What things can we demand that we want out of this process? So those kind of conversations kind of need to be happening. But I think it's amazing some of the organizing I do see going around fundraising, the calls that are happening. I want to highlight that because, like I said, two things can be true at the same time. But we got to get a little deeper here, and we have to know, what people actually believe in before we're just kind of throwing our support and throwing our votes, folks. So I think that's, to me, the most important piece that I wanted to highlight if we're going to talk about, the presidential election and what's going on. Um, what has happened over the last literally 2 weeks is that we still have to organize and that we still should be asking questions and that I'm seeing so many instances of how we have internalized white supremacy coming out with this whole process. People, it's okay for Black people to disagree publicly on principle things. Those things are okay for us to do. It is okay to question Black elected officials. It is okay to demand things of them. It is okay. We should be doing, we should be doing all these things. So I don't know if you've been seeing some of those things, frames.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think I really, really appreciate what you opened that up with, saying to us, no matter who is stepping in that White House Oval Office, our role doesn't change. Um, if anything changes, maybe a couple strategies shift this way or that way, but our role doesn't change at all. 'Cause, at the end of it all, too, and I think that's one important thing I want to highlight too. And this is something that we hold in BSF as a socialist formation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that we've all of us, what brings us together, the main thread that really brings us together as Black people fighting toward liberation is the fact that we believe that there is no Black liberation under capitalism. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and if I could take that, I would just speak about the ways capitalism um, is linked to all the different forms of oppression that we experience um, in the West in general, globally, at the hands of the West, right? And so when we look at uh, this election and the rhetoric around it, it's important to recognize that us fighting about who gets into the White House doesn't change the fact that the White House is an enemy to our people. Us fighting about who gets into who runs this government doesn't change the fact that the entirety of the government across those two major party lines, across those two major parties, right, which many people rightfully describe as a faux kind of a fake two-party system. It's really one imperialist force, either blue or red, but it's this imperialist force that is wholly, completely invested in dominating Africans and the world in general. Has been since the inception of this nation, the very people who drafted the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence that we are so often referenced in history, those same people were slave owners, right? And
Yeah.
those same people never ever viewed us as people worthy of having the same freedoms that they experience. And it's not a system that it functions by having everyone liberated and everyone free. It's
Mm-hmm.
a function. It's
Right.
a system that functions on keeping us oppressed and keeping a huge class of people, the masses, um, keeping us down. So I think, however,
Mm-hmm.
you may feel personally as an
Right.
individual about electoral politics, is really important at the very least to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether it's a Democrat in office or a Republican in office, as
Right.
we can see from the past 8 years or so. Um, we're fighting the same battle, uh, and we're going to continue fighting the same battle until we defeat this enemy that we face.
Exactly. So we have to be collectively working together, and we have to be demanding our rights, regardless of who's sitting there. So yeah, thanks again for joining us, Frames. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to chat with us about Black August. Yeah. So I'm
Thank
gonna
you
do
so much.
my closing thought, and thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. So I wanted to do my closing thought on solidarity. The term solidarity, I feel like I'm seeing thrown a lot around lately, and I want some of the allies of the Black Liberation Movement to hear me when I say that solidarity has to be something that goes both ways. With Black people, I feel like we constantly show solidarity to all movements. We understand the intersections. We understand, what it means to be in collective struggle with people. But I do feel like sometimes our allies don't always immediately show that solidarity unless we're around. So sometimes I'll see Free Palestine without Free Congo, Free Haiti, you know, Free Sudan. There's so many things going on across the world. There's so many intersections within these movements. So we shouldn't have to be there for you all to say that. It should be a natural thing because it's natural with us constantly. So I just wanted to say that also in regards to how some you may see some Black people moving with what's going on presently. We still have our people we have to organize, and we can't just leave folks behind because they don't agree with us. We have to do the duty to work with our people, to educate our people, and we still have to fight to get things over here as well. So you may see some people shifting their strategies because of what's going on presently. Capitalizing off of the moment with all the organizing going on. And I see some people judging those movements, and like I said, it doesn't matter who's in office, you still have to organize. So let folks be, talk to people, ask questions, breathe, and pause and breathe. I feel like this happened, and then we were just, especially Black women, just and expected to once again move rapidly and fastly and urgently. And then when you move like that, you leave out key analysis, you leave out people, you leave out asking for demands and those kind of important things. So be careful about how we're internalizing white supremacy. And if you're not Black and you see those things, give us some grace. Reach out, talk about it. Let's work our way through it. But I just wanted to point that out in regards to solidarity. That's something that has to be shown to Black people um, all the time. It's not anything that we take lightly, but I wanted to point that out because that solidarity piece is so important. And sometimes it goes beyond donating; it goes beyond sharing. It's what you feel in here for a people and their struggle, and how are you going to help? What is going to be your role in that? So we need true solidarity that goes just across the line. So that's my closing thought. Thank you all for joining us. Please make sure you are reading things about Black August. Please make sure that you are making yourself aware about what is going on around you, just not in America, but everywhere, as we talked a lot about today. Free Palestine, free Congo, free Haiti, free Sudan, free everyone. There's things going on everywhere. So please make sure y'all are aware of that and stay Black and celebrate Black August. Peace.